fortunate enough to be brought into this privileged inner circle, and now, sworn to secrecy, I knew we had a job to do. We had to get ready for the biggest announcement in the laboratory's history, and we had to do it with the utmost discretion. The Large Hadron Collider is CERN's flagship research instrument. It had risen to notoriety some 4 years earlier for all kinds of reasons. As the world's largest scientific instrument with a price tag to match and host to global collaborations involving thousands of scientists and engineers of around 100 nationalities, it had grabbed the popular imagination. For many, CERN's quest to understand the weird and wonderful universe we inhabit represented the true spirit of humanity, a model of what people can do when they put aside their differences and work together to achieve a common goal. To others, however, it was irresponsible, dangerous, or even redolent of the biblical story of Babel, an arrogant affront to the divine. Whatever people thought, the net result was that the eyes of the world were on CERN, and when the time came to announce this particular result, it would not be a quiet affair in front of an exclusive audience of physicists in the lab's main auditorium. This would be much bigger. Timescales are long in particle physics. The LHC was first imagined in the late 1970s, and one of its main research goals went back even further to 1964. That was the year that Robert Brout and François Englert, and independently Peter Higgs, published papers in the journal Physics Review Letters, proposing a mechanism that would give mass to fundamental particles. Why should anyone care about that? Because we and everything we can see in the universe are made of fundamental particles, and without mass, those particles would be unable to form anything solid. In other words, we would not exist. From the early 1960s, understanding mass ranked among the most pressing of riddles in fundamental physics, and it would take almost half a century to solve. Thankfully, physicists are usually blessed with a great deal of patience. Before any experiments would be ready to deliver the experimental evidence to confirm the idea of Brout, Englert, and Higgs, a decade of theoretical work would be needed. It would be several decades before technology delivered the instruments that would eventually crack the enigma. Research and development for the LHC began in the mid-1980s, while experimental collaborations started to form in the early 90s. The project was fully approved by 1996 and construction began soon after. By 2008, the machine was ready to go, and under the eyes of the global media, a beam of particles was circulated for the first time on the 10th of September 2008. It was a day of great excitement at CERN. "Just another day at the office, huh?" said LHC project leader Lynn Evans as I headed for home at the end of the day. But the elation was short-lived. Just 9 days later, the LHC suffered a setback from which it would take a year to recover. A helium leak led to extensive damage to the machine. Meanwhile, at Fermilab in the United States, another remarkable particle collider, the Tevatron, a venerable machine first switched on in 1985, was limbering up for one last push to discover the particle that had come to be known as the Higgs. Discovering the Higgs particle would bring confirmation that Brout, Englert, and Higgs were right. The race was on. Although particle theory was very clear that a mechanism for mass was needed and would have to appear at the particle collision energies of the LHC, there was one key feature of the Higgs that it did not predict: the particle's mass. It could well be in range of the Tevatron, nobody knew, but if the Higgs existed at all, it would definitely be in range of the LHC. The currencies of particle physics are mass and energy, with the exchange rate being the speed of light squared. That's what Einstein's famous equation E = mc squared tells us, and it's why particle accelerators concentrate energy in a tiny space, converting it to mass in the form of new particles.